Welcome, guys, to episode 9 of Searching for MacGuffin with your hosts,
George,
Gabe,
and Link. That's me. Today, we have a special episode for you guys.
I think that every episode is special.
That is true. Every episode is special. But this episode is specialer. You want to know why?
Specialist?
No, it's specialer. E-R, not est. But there's a reason why it's more specialer.
Why is that?
I think that's correct. Grammatically, I think that's correct.
That is not.
Why is that? Because, think about this. What year are we in?
2011, according
Well,
to George.
according to me, if you've been listening, I live in 2011.
Okay. Well, Gabriel and I live in 2021. You're so 2000 late.
That's a great reference.
That's a great reference right there, baby.
That's a deep cut.
That's a deep cut.
Like music classic.
Not if you live in 2011.
Yeah, that's right. That just happened.
Yeah. But think about this. You are alive right now in 2021. You could have
Partially.
been born at any time throughout the history of this world, right?
Mhm.
You could have been born in the 1700s.
Yeah.
But instead, you're born in 2021, where you've been able to see all the great movies that have been coming out, right? But specifically, the Marvel movies that have been coming out.
Right.
Daredevil, classic.
Yes, X-Men. Classic.
Blade Trinity.
Classic.
They made
Lou
that movie?
Ferrigno Hulk.
Fantastic Four. The one with the fours in the title instead of A's.
Oh, by the way, let me tell. I know I shared this with George. I haven't shared this with Gabriel, but I thought of this restaurant idea. Well, it's a Marvel-themed fried chicken restaurant titled. That's based in it's based in Hell's Kitchen, titled "The Blind Lawyer from Hell's Chicken." I thought that was a good. I thought that was a good title. I was really impressed with that.
Tweet it, copyright it.
Tweet and copyright
Do
it.
what you got to do.
Yeah, squat
Ah.
on the domain.
Oh, no one take
Blind lawyers from Hell's Chicken. Is
from
that
Hell's
what you said?
Chicken. Yeah, the blind lawyers from Hell's Chicken. Fried food.
Yeah, it's kind of wordy and long, but
Hey,
what works, right?
yeah, you know what's long? Searching for MacGuffin.
That's not that long.
Okay, so back to the topic, right? You could be alive at any point in life, but right now you are alive in time, and but right now you're here, and you're able to watch all these great Marvel movies that have come out.
Yeah.
The MCU, not the stuff before. I mean, you can also watch that, no problem.
Yeah.
If you want to watch Spider-Man dancing in his emo look.
I mean,
then you
half
can
of
do
that stuff is on Disney Plus now, right?
Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 years in Disney
No,
Plus.
I mean they will be soon, but
Why soon?
some of the other movies, because they entered with a deal with Sony to distribute them to Disney.
Oh,
We're not really sure if it counts with the upcoming Spider-Man movie, or if it's just the back catalog after that one.
yeah.
Is that dance that he does in Fortnite?
I don't remember what the dance is. Perhaps. Maybe it will be when Spider-Man comes to the game.
For those of you who can't physically see what
No
we're
one
doing,
can physically see. We are only an audio
Those of
podcast.
3 people in this world can see what we're doing.
Yeah,
You-
but we're in the room, so why would you be talking to us?
But we were doing the Spider-Man 3 dance where we put our hands up in the air and then we thrust at the sky.
I'm pretty sure they can hear the chairs creaking.
Oh, there you go. Yes. But yeah, you are alive where you're able to watch the MCU catalog. How many movies is that? Like 20-something movies? 22, 25?
We really did our research. We don't even know how many movies it is. As they scroll through the list and count them now.
6 plus 6 is 12.
Yeah.
Plus 11 is 13. Plus 3, 24.
Our listeners definitely tuned in for basic math.
24? Yeah, 24 movies that have been out.
I'm going to be honest with you. I
Been out,
thought
right?
it was like 22. I had no idea. It was 24
No, it's
movies.
24 movies in the span of...
Oh, we're counting phase 4?
Yeah, phase 4.
Oh, okay.
Since
Yeah,
Eternals.
got it.
But you could have been alive at any point in history. I keep on driving that
Yeah.
point. You could have been alive at any point in history, but you're alive right now, and you're able to watch all these great movies. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, the MCU, the 24 catalog movies that they have produced. And we're going to talk about what we love about them, how we enjoy them, what we hate about them, and other insights into these movies. And the best way to divide this is by talking about the phases. There's phase 1, has 6 movies. Phase 2, 6 movies. Then we go to phase 3, and it feels like Disney just goes crazy and just produces 11 movies in the span of 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years, 11 movies.
So I think the best way to do it is to segment this, which Link mentioned this being a special episode. I think we're going to divide this in two so that we can really get deep into each of the individual titles.
Yes,
So,
it's a twofer.
yeah. So today we're going to focus on phase 1 and phase 2.
The first 12 movies of this catalog, the 24 catalog. So pretty much half of it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Okay. So let's start off with phase 1.
Okay, so phase 1 begins with our first film, Iron Man, directed by Jon Favreau.
I think this movie is fantastic.
What's fantastic about it?
It's just so iconic. Like, okay, so one of the things I love about I love the Oscars, right? I love watching the Academy Awards. And I always like the little montages they make of clips of every movie.
Right.
And one of the one that they always put is of Iron Man walking from Iron Man 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's such a badass scene. It's like, man, cinematically, I just think it's beautiful. The cinematography of it, it's very simple, but it's Iron Man walking, with the explosion in the back, and I think, wow, it's just so, to me, that's a special scene right there.
It's iconic.
It's iconic, yeah. And that's why I really love this movie. I love Iron Man 2 because I think it's iconic. Although we've had superhero movies done in the past,
Yeah.
this one came out of nowhere.
Right. So Iron Man 1 for me, it's my favorite one of this phase. It sets the groundwork not just for this phase of films, but for the entire MCU. I think if this movie wouldn't have been as good as it was, I don't know if we'd be where we are today. And what I love about it, it's just so atypical of that, hero's journey archetype of following that model, but also doing it within a hero that's fresh. For example, Spider-Man 2, I think, is one of the best superhero movies ever.
Yeah.
But we've seen the Spider-Man story told over and retold. It's mythical. It's like Superman and Batman.
Mm-hmm.
But Iron Man was almost like a fresh character to audiences. Even comic book fans, there weren't many epic Iron Man stories that most fans gravitated to. You have your Armor Wars and you have Enter the Mandarin. But they're more like historical texts. And some people obviously, are Iron Man fans and they get really into those stories. But at least in my experience, it's just like Iron Man was a cool guy in an iron suit. And it isn't until this movie that it kind of redefines that character for this generation.
He wasn't really like an A-lister.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't
yeah.
an A-lister. So it was a bold choice to go with Iron Man, and an even bolder choice, I think, to go with Robert Downey Jr. as the lead character here.
Question: Does Tony Stark in the comic books already look like Robert Downey Jr., or was it after Robert Downey Jr. became Iron Man, Tony Stark, that people started to draw pretty much Robert Downey Jr.?
So it's just like, does he look like an Anglo-Saxon man with black hair and a goatee and a mustache? I mean, Robert Downey Jr. didn't have that iconic beard and mustache thing. He definitely, his facial hair and his haircut is meant to mimic the comic book Tony. So if you go back to the 90s comics or the cartoons.
But yeah, so that's what I'm asking. Was he already looking like that, or did they look like that?
I mean,
because
he modeled the look off the comics. So
Okay.
like the facial hair and the haircut, it's atypical Tony.
Okay.
You know.
Because I didn't know that. Because to me,
Yeah, like if they would have got Tom Cruise, for example, which was up for the role for a long time, he would have had a beard and a mustache and the haircut just like that.
Okay. I think it's very interesting because this movie, not only does it start the MCU and its awesomeness,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like this movie makes Jon Favreau one of the greatest directors of all time. It puts him up there in a way that it makes him special. What do you guys think about that?
I don't know about greatest directors of all time.
No, not direct greatest. Maybe most
Yeah, well,
influential.
hold your horses. So they're
Okay, no, in the sense that probably one of the most influential the directors in Hollywood, because he does this right,
Yeah.
and then later on, what is he doing right now with Star Wars,
Star Wars,
Mandalorian,
The Lion King.
The Lion King? Yes.
You don't think it was Made, starring Vince Vaughn, that set that foundation for? You don't think it was Elf?
I don't think it was Elf.
No.
Do you think if they get another director, would they be as successful as Jon Favreau is right now? Because there are some
No.
directors in this list that aren't really that famous.
Okay, so all jokes aside, Made, Swingers, Elf, it's a pretty respectable, and maybe he would get there eventually. But yeah, this is a launching pad, absolutely, for Jon Favreau.
It is, and
And he sets the tone for the
He sets the
universe
tone,
because
yeah.
he's also like executive producer, etc. From this point on.
Yeah, one of the things that I really enjoyed, obviously, you guys have listed many points, but in a superhero film, I really liked the humor. I feel like one of the main reasons the MCU is so successful is the humor that these people have into the films, and it's very natural. It doesn't feel like forced at any point, and I feel like that starts with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
And I don't know, with that hero, like he kind of like you said, it's not a very typical type of hero. He's very cocky, and you could tell like he has a lot of stuff to grow into. Like he's very cocky, he makes jokes, he just has this life that it's like if you meet him in real life, he's kind of just like I don't know if I'd like this guy.
Right.
He's kind of like this rich douchebag, and it's like I don't know if I'd like this person, but in the movie you just kind of like gravitate towards him. And that was just one of the many things that I love about this film. And the fact that also it looked beautiful to me.
It's beautiful, yeah.
That was what,
Oh yeah,
2008?
Shot
that's so
amazingly,
true.
yeah.
And it holds up. Like,
They show that scene in the Oscars, and I'm like, dang,
mhm.
epic.
Well, the next film has the enviable task of doing the same for another pillar of the MCU, and that's The Incredible Hulk by Louis Leterrier. Is that if that's correct?
Leterrier?
Yeah, I don't speak French. I apologize. So The Incredible Hulk, starring Edward Norton, as Bruce Banner. I personally like this movie. I like this movie more than some people, I think. This movie kind of falls off of people's rewatch list early on.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
How so? Why? Why do you think that is?
I don't know if it probably has to do with the fact that the actor's different.
Mm-hmm.
But and I don't know why this is, but it feels different to me.
How so?
If I can remember this, because it's been a while since
When you
I've
say
seen
it feels different, it doesn't feel like Iron Man. Is that what
it doesn't feel like, see, 'cause Iron Man, it's like I can see that being in the MCU.
Right.
With Incredible Hulk, it doesn't feel. I don't feel like it has that levity towards it. It can be kind of like heavy.
You know,
The
and
stakes are small. In the
I was going to
movie.
mention that in Iron Man. You don't think that establishing that humor is a double-edged sword for the MCU going forward?
How so?
I think that sometimes the MCU films aren't able to take seriously, dramatic moments or like really sit on them because they move on to the next joke at times. You haven't seen that, or just like too many jokes and not enough stakes. I feel like it was nice at this time. It was a nice change of pace for Incredible Hulk because Bruce Banner's life was not, sunshine and roses. He's not he's like on the run, because he has this terrible condition and he's a wanted man. And it's kind of like the exact opposite of Tony, like a brilliant scientist who doesn't get to experience like the joys and triumph of, being rich basically and being able to just,
Yeah, I like that. It's
be a
complete
hero.
He is the opposite of Tony.
yeah.
That's actually a really good point.
That's a good point.
You might have changed my mind.
Okay, it's time to rewatch The Incredible Hulk. I think it probably falls off people's list because it's not on Disney Plus.
Not mine. I think it's the difference of the actors, and it might have been an experience that I had watching that movie.
Yeah.
I really don't know what it is, but every time that I do like a rewatch, it's just I feel like that's one to skip, which I don't know why, because the movie's good.
It's great. What I like about the movie is the fight between the Hulk and Abomination,
Yeah.
and you get to see that what is it called, that slap that he does with
The
thunderclap,
yeah.
right? Like you see that, and I remember when in the movie theaters when we watched it that he did the thunderclap. There was a guy that was by us that he stood up and he started clapping because he loved that moment, and I thought, man, it's one of those because these movies, they all come from comic books, but it's rare that they capture like little things in the comic that make it special.
Mm-hmm.
There's other movies that do it. I'll talk about that later. But this one, with that little moment right there, I'm like, man, I love that.
And it's almost like there's no context to it. You feel like if you know the thunderclap,
it happens.
You're
right?
like, that was for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why, it rewards those hardcore fans. And that's what I loved about it. And you mentioned something interesting, that there is a change in stakes and and humor when it comes when we go from Iron Man to the Incredible Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
And I do wonder if it's because we all know, Robert Downey Jr. is great.
Right.
And as a person, he tends to be a little sarcastic, kind of like Tony, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much, right? But then when we go to Edward Norton, he seems to take the craft a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
Some of the movies he's done in the past, like
Hot take: Robert Downey Jr. is not a serious actor. Continue.
I feel like he's acting himself, like Ryan Reynolds acting himself nowadays.
I think it's like 50-50. It's like you have to watch the movie where he's a tour de force actor, and then the movie where he's just selling his image. He goes back and
But that's the
forth.
problem, that he's only been selling his image for like the past, 13 years?
I don't know. Did you see that movie where the violin and Jamie Foxx?
You didn't see Doolittle?
Yeah, that was. You're right.
How many Marvel movies did he not do during that period?
I mean, I think he's. I felt like, oh, he's in this Marvel movie, and then he's doing like Oscar bait. Oh, he's in this.
Is it as often as you say it is? Because I don't think so.
I think is like once like phase 3 starts to ramp up, I think that's where he just doesn't take any as many.
He's just
projects.
too busy.
Yeah, there's
he's
too
like
much
he
that
goes all in because he's about to cash out. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. But I do think that Edward Norton is, at least with what I've seen, he's more of a serious actor in his roles compared to Robert Downey Jr. Right?
I think he takes it. Well, this movie has a lot of well documented issues creatively.
And some of that comes from Edward Norton. Right?
Yeah.
Which what you were saying, like the humor is different.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go from Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo as an actor, as the way he portrays Bruce Banner, he's more humor oriented in a way.
You guys like Ruffalo as the Hulk, as Bruce Banner? He actually gets to play both, right? Banner and the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in between.
Yeah.
I do like him. I wasn't too familiar with Ruffalo before.
Yeah.
But I also, I just saw him as the Hulk guy. But when I was able to see him in other stuff, he's actually really good.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the stuff that he's in. As far as would I preferred Edward Norton?
Yeah.
I think
I
Edward
don't know.
Norton might be a better actor.
I think he is as well.
But I feel like Ruffalo gets because Marvel has, like you said, it has that sense of humor, like a style of humor.
Yeah.
I feel like Ruffalo embraces that more.
I think Ruffalo meets the tone more.
Yeah,
than,
meets the tone. There you go.
Yeah.
More than
I think he's a
Norton.
great actor, but I kind of don't want Bruce Banner to have that tone. I don't know if that's.
You want someone, yeah?
Yeah, I kind of want him to be more grounded, more serious, more maybe even depressed. I think Ruffalo, I was a big fan of his early work, things like Collateral and other breakout roles that he had early on, like Serious Fair.
Mm-hmm.
But I think his Banner is very jokey. I think and like you said, it fits the tone.
It fits the tone.
Like they're writing for the film. But I feel like I'm not really sure what his take on Banner is. I'm not really sure. Like, I'm not sure that I'm convinced that he's a super genius.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was gonna. I feel like Norton can convince me of that.
Yeah, like if I'm in a room with Edward Norton, I'm like, this guy's smarter than me. You know.
But it's like I always like refer to Tony being the household genius, and then I sometimes like it's not till later on that you see like, oh, this guy's actually really smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Banner under Ruffalo's work like slips on a lot of banana peels, has a lot of like funny facials.
You kind of feel like Ruffalo's Banner isn't as tormented.
Yes.
As Norton's.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, which that you bring up a good point. That Bruce Banner does struggle with being the Hulk, and I feel that when you get to Ruffalo's, it's not like maybe for one movie that he's kind of just like
Yeah, I think he mentions it in Avengers.
In Avengers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In that scene in India.
Yeah. So then we're back to Iron Man 2 right after, which is so funny because we wait so long for these sequels nowadays.
And,
Yeah, it's funny to think that we just went from Iron Man to Hulk back to Iron Man for Iron Man 2, also directed by Jon Favreau.
it took 2 years to make, so.
which I think cutting back to the first two movies,
Mhm.
the after credit scenes.
Oh, yeah. What would become a long, enduring tradition that is almost...
That affects you to like every movie you watch. Like
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like I know this movie is a stand. Like it can be a random movie. It'll be a
Mhm.
standalone. Why am I staying after the credits? Obviously, like of course you should like pay respects to the people that made the film, put so much work into it.
Absolutely.
But like sometimes it's kind of like I'm expecting more footage or
Mhm.
something to happen after the credits when I know nothing's gonna
That's how I
happen.
was after Encanto. I'm like, am I gonna miss something?
It's like all the time I'm just like Googling after
Yeah,
credit scene,
Yeah.
after credit scene.
it is just a part of the experience where as soon as the credits are on, once the black and white credits are scrolling, Google, is there something after the credits? Because it could be any movie at this
But
point.
because this is popularized here, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't the first time it was done.
Well, my first experience was the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. That's the first ones.
Okay.
That's
Which
true.
is
What
super.
about before that? Because Daredevil has a scene like that.
What? I don't even remember that.
Yeah, he has a scene where it's
But all the way
Bullseye.
after at the
all
end
the
of the
way
credits?
after with Bullseye, yeah.
No
Or
way.
maybe it was before.
No, that's before. It's like there's like the minor credits and then
Mm.
they do it and then it just goes to the credits. I'm almost certain.
But what about the X-Men movies? Do they also do that as
They
well?
do that. Yes,
Yeah.
actually, the X-Men do that. Yeah, actually, you're right.
So they popularize it, but it was been done before by other superhero movies.
But those are also Marvel movies, though.
They're not part of the MCU.
See, I think what it was is when it happens in Iron Man, I'm like, oh, we might get another Iron Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hulk comes out.
What's the one for Iron Man? I don't remember.
I think
Nick Fury
Oh,
and
okay,
listen
yeah,
for the
yeah.
Avengers Initiative.
Yes.
And then everyone starts to get excited. And I don't know why. When I saw Hulk, and then I see Tony come in and talk to General Ross.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I don't know why I wasn't like correlating the two to be connected. Like I was just so used to standalone films.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, what? This guy's in this movie? They're gonna be and then it started hitting. I was like, oh, this could be something big.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously I still had no idea to what scale it would have happened.
And I don't think Marvel did either because I think they had no idea where they were going with that scene after Incredible Hulk. They retcon it later to explain it, but it's like, I need you for the Avengers. And then like Tony's like, hey, General Ross, I need you for the Avengers. And then Iron Man 2 is like, nah, we don't need any of you for the Avengers.
I still think it worked because I saw Tony talking with someone from Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, well, there's a short film called The Specialist that was on one of the Blu-rays, and it explains that scene, like why Tony's the guy. Apparently he's coming to try to get Abomination on the team, but he's set as like a patsy, like to annoy General Ross, so that Ross doesn't put Abomination on the team.
I didn't know that.
Oh, really? You haven't seen it?
No.
Oh, we'll watch it. So, Iron Man 2. What were your thoughts?
I want my bud.
I felt like Iron Man 2 was fun from the intro. Well, obviously the intro's kind of sad with Vanko, right?
Yeah.
What's his name? Ivan. But when
Ivan Vanko.
when Tony comes in, like he's like has that like he comes in the suit and everyone's like cheering him on. He's got the cheerleaders, and I don't know why. Also, I feel like Iron Man really attached AC/DC.
Yes.
To me. Like
Yeah.
it popularized it in my head, and after that, like I just turned into an AC/DC fan, and
Which is hilarious because you think it would have been like the Iron Man song.
right, and that's like only in the credits, but
Yes.
it's like I only think of now when it's Iron Man, I just think of AC/DC.
Right, because Tony listens to AC/DC, right? Like in the movie we have Black Sabbath, but Tony listens to AC/DC, so it's part of his character.
Yeah, exactly. And so like him coming in to shoot the thrill and having the whole entrance and like saying it, we're back. I thought that was really fun, and I started off the movie really enjoying it, and then also the cast change.
Oh,
With-
yeah, this is the moment if you said we're going to switch our Hulk, we switch our War Machine here. Don Cheadle makes his entrance early on in the film.
And he acknowledges it as well.
Yeah, how does he do that?
He makes that joke like that. I forgot what he said.
He comes into the courtroom, and then Tony greets him, and he's like, "I'm here, deal with it." And then we're moving. That's
Yeah.
not word for word,
So
but that's
he's
basically
talking
what he
to-
says.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah.
So he's talking to us. How do we feel about the cast?
I
Casting change?
love Don Cheadle.
I love Don Cheadle. Yeah.
Yeah. What about
I think Terrence Howard did fine. It's not that I don't like him, but I think they did it. If they had to replace him, I think they did a good job.
Yeah.
What do you-
This is
I
a
think it was an upgrade from Terrence Howard.
yeah.
Whereas with Norton and Ruffalo, I think there's a downgrade, but Ruffalo does get the tone of.
Which is funny because I think You'll get this opinion from some people about the Hulk downgrade, but I think most people are just so used to Ruffalo.
Ruffalo,
that it's
yeah,
like they,
exactly.
like you
They
said, they don't
forget.
even remember
Yeah.
that. But with this change, this is kind of a learning curve for Marvel, I think, because this is 2 recastings super early on, and I think they start to figure out we need to do something about this. Like we can't be losing people left to right. Because imagine if you show up to Avengers and half the Avengers are recast. Like,
Yeah.
any other thoughts on Iron Man 2?
I mean, Sam Rockwell.
Oh yeah, he's excellent.
I love
He's
Sam
hilarious.
Rockwell. I have yet to see a Sam Rockwell movie that I don't. I mean, a Sam Rockwell performance that I don't like. So to me, he stole the movie.
Okay, performance, yeah, but not movie. Any movies that you
That I-
don't like of Sam Rockwell's?
I mean, also don't think I've seen a movie.
Watch Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
I've seen the ones with the guy from that directed 3 Billboards in Ebbing, Missouri. Ebbing, Missouri. That guy. He also did 7 Psychopaths.
Oh, I love
And
Seven
that movie's
Psychopaths.
great. He's great in it. He's great in Jojo Rabbit. Every movie I've seen of him, he's awesome. I
Yeah.
love him.
I remember seeing Iron Man 2 way too many times. How many times did you guys watch Iron Man 2 in the theater?
Like 4 or 5.
Probably however many times you saw it.
Yeah, but like within the span of like maybe like 10 days.
10 days, yeah.
Yeah, it was in.
When these movies were coming out, they were being released at 12 a.m.
Yeah.
So you had to make the line. You couldn't like order your tickets online, so you had to stand there in line. And we were always the ones standing there in line.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
But
you,
none of our friends or family members were.
exactly. You stand there with the diehards, you watch it, and the next day when your family gets up and they can actually watch it, it's like, all right, we're gonna go. And it was towards the end. I mean, I was in middle school.
Yeah.
It was towards the end of the school year, like
Mhm.
summer's coming up, finals week, and it was like it became a trend that it's like, oh, we're gonna watch the Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And so watching at midnight, and then probably like Friday during the day, and then throughout the weekend,
Watching the movie, yeah.
you try because I mean you have different groups of friends that haven't seen it yet, and you just want to keep watching.
Yeah, and that theatrical window was wider, so it would be a long time
Mhm.
before you're going to be able to see it
See
at
it again,
home.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then buying it again was like another experience. Like, oh, the Blu-ray's coming out. Watch it.
What do you guys think of the villain Whiplash? Because I liked got his name, the actor
Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke as Whiplash. I thought he did
Yeah.
well,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a forgettable.
So
There wasn't that special. About
we're still in phase 1 here, and I think that they are like cheaping out Marvel. They're learning some lessons. I know notoriously they did not want to pay for a accent coach for Mickey Rourke, so he had to go do his own travel and learn the accent to speak with a Russian accent on his own.
Really?
Yeah, because they wouldn't get him a dialect coach, which is also why Scarlett Johansson doesn't have a Russian accent. And it's also why Abomination, Blonsky, is British. He was like born in Russia or Russian parents, but like raised in England, and he has an English accent.
Wait, is Tim Roth English?
Yeah, Tim Roth is
Mhm.
English.
I also love Tim Roth.
Yeah, Tim Roth is great.
Yeah.
But so they were cheaping out, and I think that's kind of like they weren't particularly worried about their villains at this point, and this trend kind of emerges, I think. So they kind of lucked out because they underpaid Rourke too as well. They were underpaying actors a lot
Yeah.
at this time, so they just looked out.
They paid for it later on.
Yeah. So Rourke was on an upswing. He did amazing, and I watched this movie so many times. Like I mentioned, I think I was obsessed with it, and then I came around the other, and I was like, you know what? I don't know if I like this movie that much because I started thinking this isn't so much Iron Man 2 as it is, Avengers 0.5. There was a lot of elements there that didn't have to do with the first film, and it just felt like it was selling the next movie, which is, it was a problem to me at the time, and I think it's because I hadn't understood Marvel's vision yet. Even though we had seen, like, the cameos, we hadn't realized that these characters were going to start weaving in and out of each other's movies, because we still had to set up some of the big players. And the next big player that they set up is Thor by Kenneth Branagh, and that came out in 2011.
Came out on my birthday, May 6th.
For George, it just came out. So.
Yeah, that movie it's the hot new movie that I'm watching.
Mm.
So 10 years ago, Thor comes out. What was your response?
I loved it. At the time, Thor was my favorite Avenger.
Okay.
Like
Like when this movie hits or before that?
before that.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Well, different compared to the other ones.
Okay.
He's a god.
Right.
He's Greek. There's that Greek, the Norse,
Norse.
not
Yeah.
Norse, like not Greek, Norse,
Mythology.
mythology in it. And at that time I was reading comic books, and I liked Thor.
Yeah. I remember being really excited about this movie because of the director, Kenneth Branagh. I love his Shakespearean work.
Do you think it was gonna be more like that?
I think it was like that, though. I think it was. I think my favorite parts of this movie is everything that takes place in Asgard, everything that takes place among the Asgardians. Like, that's my favorite movie.
Mm.
And then when it comes down to, like, the little town in Texas, like, that stuff's fine.
I agree.
It feels small.
I agree
Yeah.
because
That town is It looks like they built that town.
I'm pretty sure they did build that town.
Okay.
I agree because I didn't watch Thor in theaters.
Right.
I had just come back from Guam
Mhm.
and I was like in a torrenting phase, so I torrented the film.
Okay. Wow.
Confession, sorry.
Confessions of a
Even
Dangerous
my
Mind.
confession.
And so when I watched it, that Asgard stuff was awesome.
Mhm.
Like the grandeur, like it was a step up.
Yeah.
Like like we were still in Iron Man and like and even in Hulk.
You know what's beautiful? That ceremony at the beginning where Thor and Loki have their comic book accurate helmets.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's like, oh.
They one of those little moments they get.
Yeah.
That I was talking about.
The thunderclap of
Yeah.
Thor.
And regarding more of the other stuff, Anthony Hopkins.
He's amazing. They
Oh,
got Anthony Hopkins.
like-
Like, this was a huge get at the
Yeah,
time.
that's a huge get. He's a fantastic actor, and I think that scene where he's like fighting, he's bickering with Thor.
Silence.
Yeah, and he like casts him out, and they have that whole argument.
Yeah.
That was super powerful. And I actually read that when they were filming that, their acting was so good that people on the set, like the cast and crew, were like visibly like shaken. Like someone like people.
I can see
people
that.
were crying. And I was just like, it's stuff like that when you like read about it and then you watch it back again, you have those little tidbits of information that's
Mhm.
like it makes it special and it makes it different.
Right.
And I mean, I really appreciate that. I thought Anthony Hopkins killed it, and I really actually enjoyed seeing Tom Hiddleston as Loki.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. What a get for them.
And Natalie Portman.
That came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think many people knew about Tom Hiddleston, right?
Mhm.
And then here he comes, and that Thor is awesome,
Loki steals the movie.
but Loki steals the movie, right?
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Not only that, he steals every. From there on, like people just love Loki.
Yeah. Yeah. To the point where he has to turn babyface. He has to go from a villain to a hero.
An anti-hero, yeah.
Yeah. What's the low point of Thor?
The
Villain?
stuff.
Was it Tin Can?
That-
What's a
well,
tin
I
can
feel
from
like
that?
I feel like the villain though is clearly Loki.
Loki.
So, but yeah, you're right. Like the Destroyer, I
Yeah.
think he's called. He's just a tin can.
I think you
yeah.
bring up a good point with the town, which I'll probably get back to when we get to the.
Okay,
second
so it's
Thor
like a
movie.
tale of two movies. For me, I thought what you were gonna say was Thor's eyebrows.
Oh,
That's part of what's coming up.
Oh, okay. So,
but what I really like about Thor too is that they add a second superhero in Hawkeye.
oh, that's
You
right.
get to see
The
Hawkeye. You
cameo.
don't get to see much of it, but it's like, oh, a little cameo of Hawkeye, and,
Yeah.
which sets up seeing him again in Avengers.
And that's where it starts to kind of be like, oh,
Click.
anybody can pop up anywhere.
Exactly.
Also, Chris Hemsworth was jacked, and I don't think I had seen someone like
Mhm.
that ripped
You think he does steroids?
as a.
We're not gonna.
Chris Hemsworth, I know you're listening. You're one of our listeners from Australia.
Yeah,
You're our
or
only
45.
subscriber.
Do you do steroids? We're not gonna tell anyone. But if you do,
I'm not here to speculate on what supplements Chris Hemsworth is taking or not taking.
But the guy was jacked.
The guy was
and
jacked.
he
it's a lot of push-ups,
he
man.
actually the outfit that they had for him,
Yeah,
he actually got too big for it
really.
to the point where like, because he came in, he tested for it, he did the test suit,
Yeah,
and then I believe one of the directors were telling one of the producers, the director was telling him, hey, like we need you to get a little bit bigger, because I think he was lean, but I think the guy just put on mass that by the time he came back, like when they were actually filming, he was like cutting off his circulation, and they had to fix it. It was
those are problems I wish I had,
that's true.
but luckily I never will.
You remember? Was this a movie where Tantan came dressed as Thor, or was that in Avengers?
Oh, I think it was in Avengers. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well,
was
we'll talk about it
'cause
when
that
we
was
get there. Don't
hilarious.
forget that. That's
Yeah.
an interesting anecdote. So we love Thor, or at least half of it. We like the other half too. It was a good movie, but half of it was a great movie. And then the last piece of the puzzle before we get to the big one, it's Captain America, the First Avenger. This was almost a misstep. You guys know about this?
All right, elaborate.
Okay, so there was a lot of production problems with this movie. And they basically lost their director very shortly before filming begins. And Joe Johnston comes in and he takes over this project. And Joe Johnston is a controversial filmmaker, to say the least, because I think he had just finished doing The Wolfman.
Mhm.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
Yeah. And that movie was...
Besides Kenneth Branagh, all the directors are getting are people like, up and coming, or not, they don't have a good.
They're well established because they have
Yeah, but
something
they're
good under.
not. They're not like.
Because Letier had already done The Transporter, and Transporter 1 was like super good.
But they're not. How do I explain it? They're not Michael Bay. Not that I want Michael Bay, but they don't have that.
You're gonna have to
No,
unpack that one.
They don't have the power, like the name that Michael Bay had. Or does he?
Jumanji?
They weren't big
They weren't big,
blockbuster
yeah, no,
directors,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
They had a good film or two under their,
But
you know.
but they weren't big, popular.
Right, absolutely,
Yeah, exactly. I do think that Marvel does popularize the blockbuster director.
Mm-hmm.
John.
Oh, yeah,
that's why I
'cause-
said, and that's why I said I think John Favreau was so influential because he becomes a blockbuster director because of this.
I think they still do that now to this day. I think it's a launching pad for directors. They get them young and early. Maybe they have like a sleeper hit.
Yeah, like the guy from the Fast and the Furious.
Tony Danza.
No, the guy did Tokyo Drift, and then he ends up taking the Justin Lin.
Yeah, Justin Lin, right? He did a Marvel movie?
He was supposed to, right? Was supposed to.
I'm not sure with this line of...
I think he was supposed to do it just. Oh no, I'm sorry. He did. Remember he was supposed to do Flash, or something like that.
I thought he... Didn't he do Aquaman? Who
Aquaman. There
he
we
did
go.
do Aquaman,
Yeah. My bad.
Yeah, Aquaman's not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Okay. So Joe Johnston comes on board and he takes over this film at the last minute. I think to mixed results. Some people love this movie. Some people, it's their favorite Marvel movie. Have you heard this?
Okay, so when this movie came out, I thought it was good. I liked it,
Mhm.
but this movie got ruined for me because a friend of mine
Yeah.
said that this movie was better than The Dark Knight.
Okay.
This is when Facebook was at its prime, and I would have arguments with people on Facebook. And as soon as she said that, I'm like, okay, I hate this movie. This movie's not obviously not as big as The Dark Knight. She said if The Dark Knight's a 98 out of 100, this movie's a 96. And I was like, okay, I hate this movie. So how dare you say that?
Wait. She said it was better than The Dark Knight?
She was arguing that it was better. You
And-
said it was.
But then she rated it
and
two
she gave it a
points.
96 when The Dark Knight was a 98.
After I argued with her, and
Okay.
she's like,
You
okay.
talked her down.
I talked her.
To 2 points off.
Yeah, apparently 4.
No, you said 98 and 96.
Oh, or 3, because she said it was better. So
Where are these numbers
Quick
coming
maths.
from? No, because you said 98 and 96.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're like
but
4 and then 3.
No, 4 or 3, because if it's 98, what's better than 98? 99.
99. Oh, so you're saying it would have been because you couldn't like nail down what number she would have rated it before you talked her down to 96.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I was like, okay. And because of that, not that it's a bad movie, but it's it's like, okay, this is obviously not as good as The Dark Knight. It's not up there with The Dark Knight.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Gabe?
I'm still shocked at what you just said.
Was it the math or just that someone would dare put it that close to The Dark Knight, or even better?
Honestly, I don't even
Okay.
line of questioning.
So this is actually one of my wife's favorite. It's her favorite Captain America movie. It's one of her favorite of it.
One of her what? It's her favorite Captain
My
America
jaw, my jaw just dropped.
Okay.
I'm telling you, these first Avenger people, they're everywhere.
Wow.
I mean, I see where you're coming from because my best friend is like he's the same way. Like he loves he loves Captain America. Captain America is one of his favorite heroes
Right.
because of this film. And I mean, I like this movie, but
I just don't understand.
there's people in like there's their top 5, their top 10s, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I guess it's a hot take.
Yeah, I went into this movie excited because Joe Johnston directed The Rocketeer in the 90s, and that was like one of my favorite movies as a kid. Yeah.
Also, I said Jumanji earlier.
Yeah.
He also directed Jumanji, which is, I just didn't want it. I didn't want it to be like a random comment that I just said Jumanji out of the.
Yeah, which also was one of my favorite movies as a kid.
Oh, you don't have Tourette's and you're just saying random movie names?
I love Jumanji and The Rocketeer.
Chronicles of Narnia.
With that being said, they are nowhere near anywhere The Dark Knight or the best, or they're not in the same category as the best Marvel movie ever.
Do you think that you kind of fell out of love with Joe Johnston when he made Jurassic Park 3?
I wasn't even aware he made Jurassic Park 3. So subconsciously, maybe, because that movie is horrific. But Joe Johnston, and he does this a lot. He likes to pick up projects late, and then so sometimes they're terrible, and then sometimes they're good, and it's like...
You can't really blame him, can you?
Yeah, so we're like, we see what you're doing, Joe Johnston, because we can't tell if you're a good director or not.
If it's good, I made it. If it's bad, it's the previous director.
Right. So this movie's good, but it's flawed. I think, in my opinion.
But Chris Evans. I almost got the Chris's. But Chris Evans.
It took me a while to jump on the Chris Evans bandwagon.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. This movie didn't convince me.
And this movie did not convince me. Plus, he was already the Human Torch.
Yeah.
I don't like it when actors play different superheroes.
Like Michael B. Jordan?
Specifically, when...
If they're Human Torch?
No, yeah. Specifically, if they're in the if they're in the same if they're already in the same company. You get me?
Right.
Like you're going from Marvel to Marvel. It doesn't make sense.
So it's okay when like J. Jonah Jameson becomes
Gordon.
Commissioner Gordon, and then J. Jonah Jameson again?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'll justify that.
All right.
Because it's bound to happen now, especially with Marvel movies.
Right. Especially with so many movies.
Exactly. So, Christian Bale, Dark Knight, is now going to be in Thor.
And you hate that.
Not that I hate that, but it's like, you're Batman, bro. You can't do that.
Okay.
You're literally, you can't jump on the...
Christian Bale, do you hear this? You can't.
Back out. Back
You
out
can't
now.
do this.
What are you going to do, Christian Bale? Assault me with your words?
Come on, Tom Cruise.
So,
You'll get canceled.
with that being said, Captain America: The First Avenger. To me, my nitpicks are: I really wish Hugo Weaving was in it more. I really wish he wasn't like a Nazi caricature. I really wish that the movie didn't try really hard to stop them from being Nazis and just becoming Hydra like immediately. Like we don't want to talk about Nazis. It's campy, which is fine, but it kind of holds it back in my opinion.
One thing about this movie that makes it important is that it's the first Marvel movie that's written by Christopher Marcus and Steve McFeely.
Mm-hmm.
And from there on, they end up writing pretty much all the big Marvel. They pretty much end up writing a lot of the Marvel movies.
Right.
Like Thor: The Dark World, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. So they get these two writers, and they pretty much run with them the whole thing.
And they keep giving them work even after Thor: The Dark World?
Kevin Feige did not give up on them because you're right. It's Captain America, the first Avengers, then Thor's The Dark World. But then they find their stride in Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Those films are...
But, I mean, can you really fail those movies at that time? Like,
I mean, I think what's good about them, though, the writing is a big part of it. So I give them credit.
I do wonder, though, if... What movie did the Russo brothers? Winter Soldier. I do wonder if the Russo brothers have a big play in that.
That's so true. Yeah. And it's funny with writing credits in Hollywood, it's really hard to differentiate
what.
Yeah, who's and
unless
what's
you understand different style, like you can tell this was written by him. But you're right.
Even then, sometimes you'll make those assumptions, and then the writer room themselves will be like, "Oh no, I got that from this guy. He brought it up and everything." So all the foundations are in place, right? Tony, Bruce, Thor, and Steve, the Avengers, 2012.
Well, you also get Black Widow and
Joss
Iron
Whedon.
Man too, right?
Yeah, you got Black Widow, you get Hawkeye, kind of,
And
in
Thor, yeah.
in Thor.
You know what? You're right. I said that
But the
Thor is-
four pillars are.
I said that in Thor, it's the first time you see another hero. But you're right. They have Black Widow in Iron Man.
Iron Man 2, that's
So-
right.
So I
Yeah.
take that back. I'm sorry. And then into next year, in May 2012, we
Yeah.
see Marvel's The Avengers,
Marvel's The Avengers.
which at the time was the biggest thing ever,
I think so too, yeah.
right? Which when we looking at it now, how small was that?
Yeah.
We're
yeah.
celebrating over like 4
Yeah.
heroes being
Well,
together,
6
5,
heroes
6?
being together,
Listen,
yeah.
listen.
But 4 movies.
Let me enjoy the Avengers. Let's stay where we are now.
No,
and let me
it's
enjoy
great. It's
the
great.
Avengers.
It's great.
The other ones will have their time.
It's
You know,
great.
and it's you said they're small, but they're small in comparison. This movie's still huge.
No, this movie's huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
the stakes are big. Tony almost dies again.
Yeah.
Or for the first time. But back then, it felt big, right?
Mhm.
It felt like, wow, this is what a Justice League movie would look
Probably the biggest thing that I had seen on screen.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, I remember standing in line for hours to get a crack at this movie early. I think it might have been a week.
like. A week early, yeah.
Yeah, a week
Saw it
early. And I stood in line all day. I took the day off of everything.
Like from 3 to
No, I think it was like 7 because it
7,
was
right? Yeah.
since it was a pre-screening, you didn't have to wait
we
till
waited
midnight.
in line for that.
Yeah, it was like 4. No, I mean, I think it was 3 for us because actually I didn't take the day off. I think I had to get out of. I know someone was standing in line for me early,
Okay.
so
It was
I
probably me. I think it was
Yeah.
me and Pookie.
yeah. So I think you guys got there like
Early.
at 12
Yeah.
or something like that.
See, you guys saw it early,
Mhm.
right?
Okay.
And you guys seeing it early.
I'm a good person. Everyone know that I am a great human being. I am the salt
So-
of the earth.
Here we are.
I'm not a bad person.
I'm not a bad person. I'm the salt of the earth.
Me and a group of friends we are at an event, and Link walks into the building, strutting all over the place.
I mean-
I saw Avengers. He didn't
I
wasn't
mean,
saying
if
it, but
you
could-
watched Avengers
but you
a
could-
week before it came out, you are allowed to strut. You're the coolest person in
but
that
you
room.
could see it on his face, and I'm not denying that.
There's a twinkle.
But this
There was a twinkle
guy
in my eye.
comes up to me, and he goes, "Coulson dies."
Oh no.
Before I even say how was the movie, he just says Coulson dies.
Wow.
And
You know what? Great powers come with great
And I- no, no,
responsibility.
no, no, no.
And I abuse
No,
that
no, no,
power.
no.
And I am sorry.
I looked at him, and,
He didn't know if it was true. If I was
it
bluffing.
was, and it was rage.
But you didn't know if I was bluffing or not.
I was still so pissed.
But at the end of the day, it was true.
I
though.
was
Yeah,
still
he
so
realized
pissed.
he
So
realized
tell-
that when he watched it a week
So
later
when I go and watch it in the movie,
with me.
I was so mad. I was so upset, and I think I just looked at you and I was like, I didn't say anything. I just shook my head because I was so upset. I was like, how could you? I'm still getting. Which I kind of vowed to get my revenge,
And you have.
but I have nope. I
Yes,
haven't
you
had.
have.
I haven't had the heart to.
Because you're a better person than me.
I haven't had the heart to do it, and I really
You're not a
want
bad
to.
person.
You're a better person than me.
You're
I'm
not
still-
a disgusting person.
I'm still making.
You're not a disgusting person.
But agreed. I mean, when I saw it with all the normal people
hmm
opening night,
Yeah, the plebs.
it was packed. It was a packed house. This was such an event that actually I remember that was around the time like I think Twilight was pretty big,
hmm
and people. I mean, this is a side story, but people were like confusing me for Taylor Lautner,
Okay.
and I was
That's true.
really confused.
We called you Jacob all the time.
No, still, but that's between us.
Yeah.
That was between our group. But this was other people that were like freaking out. And I mean, at the time I was wearing like a tie, I was shirt and tie and stuff like
You
that.
just were wearing like jean shorts
Like
and
a
no
prep-
shirt.
yeah,
You were just
prep.
walking around
no,
Walking
but like,
around with dogs.
as a werewolf.
yeah.
and I mean that may
the
be
moonlight.
like a weird side story, but
Right.
to me,
That was a very weird side story.
to,
yes,
no,
you're
but to
correct.
me it added to an experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the same for you guys. You'd already seen it.
Yeah, nobody had confused me for Taylor Lautner. That's
Exactly. And
correct.
no one was cheering for you and
That's right.
yelling and screaming at you. So it was just different. It added, I don't know, it added fuel to the fire, to the hype. And so watching that movie, I think afterwards we ended up going to eat shawarma because of this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was all right.
This
Just
movie's
like-
great. This movie's great.
I think
Just-
you wanted to.
No, the shawarma.
Oh, the shawarma.
The movie was great. The shawarma was all right.
The shawarma was mid for
alright.
me.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's the first time I had shawarma. Was not a fan of
Did you like it?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't go with you guys. You keep telling the story, and I didn't have shawarma.
You were there. We didn't have shawarma right afterwards. We had it like months later.
Months later?
Yeah.
Okay,
like
that
2 or
might
3
have
months,
happened.
Yeah.
Every time you guys tell me the
It
story,
was a place by your house.
you make it sound like we went directly to the
Yeah,
shawarma.
no, we
Oh no,
didn't.
it wasn't after.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't because it was 12.
Maybe I've just
The
misunderstood.
shawarma was not open at 3 a.m.
Okay, but I also think that you wanted to share an anecdote about my brother dressing
yes.
up for this film.
Your brother came dressed as Thor.
Yeah.
But like
Bargain bin.
like DIY Thor
Yeah.
with the tin can like.
Yeah, he had tin cans for the chest plate,
Yes.
and I remember he had electrical tape. What is it like? The silver duct tape just wrapped around his shoes and legs to create the boots, the silver boots.
And he had the hat and the little hammer.
Yeah, he had a little hammer, as in he had like one of those meat grinding hammers.
Yeah. What I love about this movie is that it has Joss Whedon as the director, and I feel like this might be the first time where you have someone that's already into that pop culture, that sci-fi,
Okay.
come in and do it. You know, he does Firefly, he does Serenity, he does.
But those weren't very big ventures.
Those weren't big ventures, right? But you
Right.
have someone that's already into something that's, I don't want to say
In genre,
nerdy, yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's, he does that. He did Doctor Horrible Sing Along Blob. So I think I love the fact that you get one of us to direct this movie.
Right. One of us. Josh Whedon's one of us. Are you
Well,
sure?
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
It was a different
we
time.
have similar things in common.
You either lived long enough.
Phase
So Iron Man 3 kicks
2.
off phase 2.
2, yeah.
And this I think received mixed reception from fans. I love this movie. I personally love this movie.
I agree.
This movie's great.
Shane Black's a great director. I love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. He worked with Robert Downey Jr.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure he got this job because Robert Downey Jr. recommended him. And it's a Christmas movie. I'm always down for new Christmas movies.
In May.
Yeah, in May, but because they do that because it's not like a Christmas movie like The Grinch or Arthur Christmas. So you're gonna sell
When did Die Hard come out?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
But the point here is that Iron Man 3 is a big Marvel movie, so it comes out for the summer, but you're gonna sell the Blu-ray for the holidays.
Yeah.
So because usually, and I don't know if you remember this, back in the day, a Christmas movie used to come out for Christmas, and they used to hold it 12 months, and the Blu-ray would come around November for the holidays, October or
okay.
November. So the window for a holiday movie used to be way longer, and it would disappear. Like there would be months where it wasn't there because you're gonna make more money later. So, but this is a Marvel movie. It comes out in the summer. Then you double dip it. But I think the directing's super good.
I love this movie. I thought the whole sequence of the suits
Mm-hmm.
coming in, getting in and out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so. I thought it was so creative.
Yeah. I think if you thought you couldn't get bigger,
Yeah.
50 Iron Men simultaneously.
I don't know why people don't like this movie.
I think the controversial part is the Mandarin
The Mandarin
reveal.
part.
Yeah.
But even then, that pays off 10 years later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some might argue it's a retcon, so it's like kind of trying to fix an issue, which is what I think this establishes what's going to be good from this point on, where if you like something, we're going to give you more of it. If you didn't like something, we're going to pivot and we're still going to honor, what we've done in the past, but we can kind of nip tuck and get a narrative that kind of is more pleasing for everyone. So I love,
They make it work.
yeah, they make it work. I love the Mandarin reveal because I do think the traditional depictions of the Mandarin were antiquated and just didn't have a place in today's society. So like I love Ben Kingsley. He's totally not Asian, So and that caricature, I think the movie had a lot to say with that like subversion. And like you said, if you didn't like that, well, it's gonna play out later
Yeah.
for you. Any other thoughts?
Miami. I love the movie. Miami.
Man 3 takes place in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Port of Miami, remember? That
Like-
whole sequence with the suit, it's like in the Port of Miami.
At the end.
At the end,
Okay,
yeah.
but the whole movie doesn't take. He's like stranded in like some snowy.
Chattanooga, baby.
Oh, that's right, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
I don't know if it was actually filmed in Chattanooga. 'cause-
But it takes place.
yeah,
in
but it takes
Chattanooga.
place in Chattanooga. So I love this movie. It had two really big cities, not at the time, but Miami at the time, but Chattanooga was later on. So when I rewatched it, when I did my rewatch for Iron Man 3, I was like, oh, Chattanooga. Oh, I completely forgot that they were in those two cities. So it means more to me now.
Wow. Wow, that's great. Thor: The Dark World comes next. This is probably the low point for Phase 2, and I
Yeah.
think arguably for the entire MCU
Pretty much.
until recently. But we'll get there eventually. In the Infinity Saga, this is probably the weakest film. I still think it's pretty good. I personally like this movie. I watch it in my rewatch.
I know Thor. I mean, I know that Loki stole the movie
Yeah,
again,
absolutely.
but I don't remember much of it.
Okay, so
Listen, I mean, we're going back to what my difference between Thor and this one.
mhm.
Okay, there you go.
His eyebrows were fixed.
Yeah.
And
So-
I think that to me, I don't know, man. When I saw the first Thor, I was like, man, this is really
Are his
off-putting.
eyebrows no longer blonde, right?
Yeah, they were like bleached or something.
Yeah, they bleached them.
So
in
what
the
are they
first
now?
It
movie.
was strange. They
They're
were
just
like
as
his normal.
natural,
Yeah, they
like-
were his normal.
So you're telling me?
I think his hair was better too.
Yeah, because they bleached his hair also.
So in
Mhm.
canon, does Thor do his eyebrows constantly, or?
I think in Asgard he used to dye them,
Oh, okay.
and I think he's just too busy now with all this Avenger stuff.
He forgot to dye
That
them.
makes sense. That
Mm.
checks out,
Yeah.
actually.
It also might be the like the ozone layer
Of
in,
the world,
in
of
Earth.
The
Yeah, too much
the depleted
exposure.
ozone layer.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
once it's depleted,
Yeah.
they're gonna come back.
Yeah. So Thor: The Dark World. I like again all the Asgard stuff. I love the stuff with Frigga, Loki's mother. Spoilers, 2013. I know it's 2 years from now since I know 2011, but her death, the relationship between Loki and
She
Frigga.
dies in this movie.
Yeah, this is where she
Oh
dies,
wow.
and then this is where
Jamie Alexander is in this movie.
yeah,
Sif?
she is. Yeah,
Is she?
yeah, she
Okay.
is. She disappears for the third one.
Okay.
But yeah, Jamie's Alexander, and they kind of hint a romance,
right.
like the people of
kinda want it.
Asgard
Kind of
yeah.
wanted that.
want it. I'm interested in still exploring that possibly.
You can still
maybe.
explore it, yeah.
But and I like that. I like that dynamic. You don't know where it's going. Is
Give
it
it to me,
Jane?
Taika.
Is it? And all that stuff is great. I think Loki, like you said, steals the movie, but the villain is
The
weak.
villain.
Yeah, I
is
think
weak,
that was the weak. That's a lot of people's gripes about it. Is the villain is very forgettable.
Yeah.
Malekith, right?
Yeah, Malekith. I'm not super into the Malekith character in the comics. Like, I'm not familiar with him, but I hear that, like, you know, comic book fans are like, he's such an interesting character. And I heard that the actor, the Doctor Who guy, what's his name?
So many.
I remember that's also true. He was in Gone in 60 Seconds. Christopher Eccleston.
Eccleston.
Nicolas
Yeah,
Cage.
Eccleston. He plays Malekith, and I heard that he researched the character and like fell in love with like the comic book depiction
Mm.
of him, and then they like cut a bunch of his scenes.
Oh man, that sucks.
Oh, that does
All that
suck.
hard work.
Yeah. So people feel that he was wasted and the character was wasted. And I know this went through some developmental turmoil too. And we lost Natalie Portman because of it for
Yeah.
for several years. I mean, technically up until this point, because she'll come back later, but it'll be using footage from this movie.
Was the turmoil related to the director?
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
Patty Jenkins was supposed
Yeah,
to
so
direct
she
it,
was a
right?
big proponent for
Wonderful.
getting Patty Jenkins, who would go
yeah.
on to direct Wonder Woman. So good things still happen to
Yeah.
wait. But she gets removed from this position. There was turmoil around Phase 2 about the creative direction, and the reality is that it caused a split. We lost Natalie Portman at this time, and fans came out underwhelmed, which I could see why they're underwhelmed. I still think it's an important chapter, and I think movies that are to come will help like recontextualize it.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather watch Thor 2 more than Thor 1.
Yeah, that's kind of a hot take.
It's a
Yeah.
very hot take. I think it's because, like we said, the town
Yeah.
season Thor. I feel like the stuff in London, I don't know. I thought it was more enjoyable than
Really?
the stuff in the town.
Really?
Not
Setting
like
up-
the Asgard. Not the Asgard stuff.
Yeah.
But like towards like the third act of the film.
Right.
I don't know. For me,
You like setting up weather wands
yep.
in order. Okay.
I love all of it.
My favorite part of that is when Thor's hammer flies by and Kat Dennings is like meow meow.
Meow meow. She says like, yeah.
Yeah.
See, Thor's a better movie. Thor 1 is a better movie.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think if I have to rewatch them, I think I'd probably watch Thor 2. I also think because of stuff that happens later on.
The other thing is, I think this is the first movie we talk about the after credits, where like the after credits.
Happens in the after credit.
So they destroy the Bifrost in which movie? In Thor 1, right? And then he just finds a way using the All-Father magic to come back in Avengers. And then how does he get on Earth in this movie?
The All-Father sends him. He had
Okay.
to summon a lot of.
Oh, but then the All-Father dies. No, that didn't happen. Just kidding. Okay, I don't even remember. I know that like Thor leaves at the end of the movie, and then Thor returns.
Yeah,
and
he like his
reconnects.
his dad sends him. They don't have the Bifrost, but
Right.
like it's Loki says it. He's like, how much power did the All-Father have to conjure to? That's not true.
No, that's later on.
No, that's in Avengers.
That's in Avengers. Right? You know what? We don't remember what happened in this
Yeah,
movie.
okay, I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna move on. We obviously like Thor: The Dark World, but not enough to remember anything that happened in it, except Frigga died. But the next chapter is Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which for
Yes.
many people, including myself, is the high point of the MCU.
Yes. Get the Russo brothers to direct.
That's right.
And I love the Russo brothers. I love their work in Arrested Development, Community, and the fact that they picked them up to like show like these TV show directors. I thought that was awesome. They
Right.
took a chance on them,
Mhm.
and it paid off big for Marvel.
Yeah, and for the Russo brothers,
Yeah.
and for us.
And for us,
Yeah. What makes this movie so great?
feels different. Doesn't feel like a superhero movie. We're in how many movies have we done right now? This is the 8th movie.
Oh, I thought you
In
were
the
gonna
MCU?
count them one by one.
No,
Again.
did the math. This is the 8th movie in the MCU, and
Yeah.
it's the one that finally feels different in my opinion. It doesn't. I don't classify it as a superhero movie. It's more of an espionage movie.
Yes,
genre.
absolutely. It's grounded. It
Yeah.
feels like
It looks very serious.
it feels like a Jason
Yeah.
Bourne movie or
If I'm gonna
Mission
compare
Impossible.
a movie to The Dark Knight, if
Yeah.
Captain America movie to Dark Knight, it's this one.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think this might be the best movie in the MCU. I love this one.
Yeah, and Captain America has powers, but he doesn't do anything that like Bruce Willis doesn't do in like the 4th or 5th Die Hard movie.
Even the commercials.
Yeah, even the Die Hard battery commercial. It's just a great film.
Yeah.
Oh, the villain. Spoilers. Alexander Pierce.
Robert Redford.
Robert
Redford,
Redford. That's another big get. It's funny because we're in the middle of phase 2 and we're still being impressed by these castings. Like, we haven't come to the conclusion that they can get whoever they want,
Yeah.
you know? And Robert Redford is a big get, and he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's so
fantastic.
good.
And I think they introduced. Well, they reintroduced, but the Winter Soldier,
Yes.
who would come out to be another iconic character, Bucky,
Mm-hmm.
and how he comes back and his part in the story is just there's a lot of intrigue and mystery. Like, who is this dude? And like you said, it's like an espionage thriller, and with the reveal with it being Hydra. And I remember you would tell me how you would watch it along with Agents of Shield, I believe, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could you just elaborate a bit
Yeah,
more on
so
that
like
experience?
Agents of Shield was good. Agents of Shield just came out, right before this movie. It was still season
Mhm.
1, right? And season 1 is like, okay, it's a ragtag group of young, sexy agents,
With Coulson,
who are
who's not
globetrotting.
dead.
Yeah, who's not dead. So technically, like,
Hmm.
didn't spoil it for
I
you.
didn't spill anything
'Cause
for
he
you.
didn't die.
I'm not a bad guy.
Yeah, you're not a disgusting person. So Captain America: The Winter Soldier comes out in the middle of season 1 of Agents of Shield, and it kind of took a while for that show to get on its feet and like find its legs. But there's like a big character turn, and then Shield randomly falls apart in the middle of the series, and it's like I remember the episode. I remember there's an episode where they showed the day. It was the night before the movie comes out, and they showed that clip from Winter Soldier where Fury is like running for his life, and everyone's trying to kill him, and the Winter Soldier just like blows the car over, and then it cuts, and it's like, go watch Winter Soldier, and then the next week Shield falls on the show, and it was like, you're rewarded for going back and forth. Like, I saw Shield on Wednesday, I saw Winter Soldier on Thursday, and then next Wednesday it picks up right where the movie left off, and that's where I think it sold me on the interconnectivity.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's an experience you can't replicate it. I don't think it
Yeah.
doesn't happen in real time, especially because it turns out later, like, that scene wasn't even part of the episode. It was just they showed it to us because the movie was coming out,
Yeah.
the next day. So the cliffhanger was for a movie that wasn't even part of the show. It was incredible. So Captain America, the Winter Soldier, takes the series in a brand new direction. And speaking of new directions, the next film, Guardians of the Galaxy by James Gunn.
I love this movie. I think this is my favorite movie in phase 2.
Yeah.
Is my second favorite movie in the whole MCU.
Wow.
But I love this movie so much. It takes a big risk with these lesser known characters.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not until 4 years later in 2018 where these characters are finally introduced to the characters of the MCU.
Yeah.
So you take a risk on these characters and you hold them there like on the shelf for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't see it all played out until Infinity War.
And this is even bigger risk than, like, if we said Iron Man was a big risk.
No, this
for
is
the
even
first
bigger.
movie,
Yeah.
I don't even know who these guys were.
I know who these guys were.
Yeah, like, I read Guardians of the Galaxy growing up. Like, I'm not into the cosmic space stuff. I think we've covered that here in the past. But the lineup was completely different. So these characters, I literally didn't know any of them. This was a cold sell for me on every single one of them. And man, did they deliver. The humor, the
soundtrack.
Yeah, the soundtrack, the special effects, the action. Man, this is the complete package right here.
I love this movie, man. One of the reasons why I love this movie so much is because as this movie is coming out, I'm a fan of Parks and Rec. I'm watching Parks and Rec as it's going on. And the fact that I got to see a fit Andy Dwyer up there, be a superhero, be a Burt Macklin FBI, but of space. I was just so happy to see that, man. Like, yes, Chris Pratt. Loved it. And then, not only that, I just love the way you said, you talk about the humor. I love where James Gunn takes the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, if Winter Soldier is one genre, this movie's another genre.
Yeah. They start to get experimental.
They start to get experimental, in these two. So I love the sense of humor. I love where James Gunn takes the story. And I believe it's the success to this story is one of the reasons why we're later able to get someone like Taika Waititi to do Thor Ragnarok. So that's why, to me, this movie's special.
Right. Sometimes it feels like we have too much of a good thing. There's so many good movies. And since this is like dead center in the middle of the MCU, it's hard to see them as individual parts. But if this movie wasn't tied to anything, man, this movie might be like this generation Star Wars. Is that a crazy
I can see that
idea? Like, wow. It was...
I feel like Dune might be this.
Okay, I could see that.
I think I agree with your statement
because it's like a contender.
Because you have no... Unless like you're a diehard Guardians fan, like you really have no expectations.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the sweeping qualities of this movie is that no one really knows what to expect. They're not really sure. Like you said, it was a cold sell. And for me personally, like I didn't watch the movie when it came out in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did watch it, like everyone had like it wasn't overhyped.
Yeah.
Because it, like you said, it delivers.
I didn't spoil anything this time.
Character development for Link.
Yeah.
But I think that as you guys watched it, you guys absolutely loved it. And for me, like it was pretty hyped. Everyone was saying like, go watch it. It's so good. And I didn't really get to watch it until it came out like in home. And so then I watched it. I was like, this movie's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And I still had the expectations for like, I didn't know what it was about, but people were still talking about it. People love this movie. And I'm like, okay, is it really going to be as good? And I still think it blew me out of the water.
It also it's a difficult movie to spoil because, like you said, you still didn't know what to expect at home.
Yeah.
Because it's like you don't know anybody and it's not tied to anything. So, because like if you didn't watch Winter Soldier, someone can come up to you and be like, "Shield falls," right, or Fury fakes his death, or whatever, But you can't do that with this movie. Like, what are you gonna tell? Groot dies, but then he doesn't.
I think
he's born again.
I think it definitely was a step in the right direction to really allow these directors some creativity to do what they do. You could see like it's like it displays that Feige can allow the directors the freedom that they need. And I think it worked. I think that it worked, and for later projects to come, they realize like I think that's where you realize that we know like they know what they're doing.
Right. That brings us to the next chapter, which has quite a legacy to live up to. Age of Ultron. Avengers Age of Ultron has to be the second Avengers movie. How'd that pan out?
the stakes are bigger. You
Mhm.
get more heroes.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's as good as the first one.
I'm not gonna lie. I fell asleep during this movie.
Okay.
We watched this movie.
Not necessarily
Remember
because
that.
like it was boring or anything. I mean, I had a soccer tournament that we had
Okay. So it
played
was
the night
personal
before.
stuff.
Yeah. But that influenced me because I had watched the movie. I had watched Avengers, and someone asked me, "Oh, like, did you like Avengers?" Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
I didn't remember half of that movie,
Right.
and so it wasn't until like years later that I go back and I watch it, and I'm like, with the thought in my head, this movie's okay. It's
Yeah.
all right. But then I watched it and I was like, I really enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
It was basically like watching it for the first time again.
That is a testament though to like the quality of the film itself, because if it was Avengers the first one, I don't see myself. I could have been sleep deprived and then waterboarded for 72
Yeah.
hours before Avengers. I don't see myself falling asleep during that movie.
Yeah.
So obviously, and maybe we were spoiled too because we expected so much. I think there's a lot of characters in this movie. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't expect Vision to be in the movie. I was surprised when it happened. I'm happy that that's the launching point for that character because we're gonna get so much more from him. And Vision and Scarlet Witch, I was never big fans in the comic book. West Coast Avengers, not my favorite title, but
East Coast.
okay, but this sets the groundwork for a lot, and I think we are still unsure because there's a lot of strands in this movie that go in different directions. And when we came out of the movie, we were like, "Where was that going? Where is that headed?"
Yeah.
And we still hadn't like figured this is all pointing to something else.
Mm.
Although I know that was stifling creative for Josh Whedon at this time, though there was also a lot of questions about like stuff that had to be in the movie, but Josh didn't really have a place for it. He was like, "I want to tell this story," and they're like, "Well, you also have to set up this movie and this movie and that movie because this movie sets up, Black Panther because Claw appears in it.
Civil
They
War.
talk about it sets up Civil War.
Zemo.
Yeah,
It's a WandaVision. I mean, is it?
yeah, it
WandaVision?
will. Yeah, it sets up Scarlet Witch and Vision, whatever they're gonna do. In the future from this. It introduces a lot of new characters and worlds and elements and the vision that Thor has for Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And I don't really think they had a plan yet. They didn't know what Ragnarok was gonna look like, but he has the vision anyways.
I did like this movie when it came out. You watch these movies, you're on a high from them. Like, oh, this movie is great. I did think that it was better than first one when it came out, but after rewatching it, rewatching all the movies in chronological order for Endgame, I realized, okay,
Yeah. Well,
after with time, like, all right, I can see that.
Yeah, you're
was
like, oh,
good.
we needed this movie.
We needed this movie. It's good, but it's not. I prefer the Avengers.
And I think we become more open minded as the phases kind of flesh out because sometimes we go to a movie and we're like, oh, this is a chapter in a series rather than if Guardians is its own isolated thing, we start to see these movies as kind of the next step.
Yeah.
So we anticipate like it wasn't so much about what happened here, but where it's going to take us.
Yeah.
And then that begins the speculation and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Phase 2. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the film is necessary.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my gist with it.
Yeah. Phase 2 ends weirdly.
I think it ends in a high note.
Well, the movie's good, but we were used to Avengers, and like you're obviously gonna think the big Avengers movie is gonna end, but there's kind of like an epilogue in Phase 2, which we see is gonna kind of become a tradition, so to speak. Ant-Man finishes Phase 2. So as our final title, what were your thoughts on Ant-Man?
Okay, so I love Ant-Man.
Uh-huh.
Not because of the character Ant-Man,
Okay.
but because of Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd's my favorite actor. If I were to choose an actor to play me when I'm 40 for my movie, This Is 42, it's gonna be Paul Rudd. And you know what? He will still look younger than me. So I love Paul Rudd. He's one of my favorite actors. Right? Paul Rudd is my favorite Avenger. And when I say that, I don't mean that Ant-Man's my favorite Avenger. I mean the character Paul Rudd himself is an Avenger in my MCU.
Okay.
He is. So I love him.
Did you just say that the name of your biographical film would be This Is 42?
Yeah, because that Judd Apatow movie, This Is 40.
Yeah. Oh, so it'd be like 40 and then the number 2, or it would start when you're 42.
Oh, see, it's ambiguous.
Oh,
You can't tell.
Oh, it wasn't like TOO?
It's creative, huh? Yeah, 40 TOO. Or is
oh,
it
would it be 40 TOO?
Or is it ambiguous? You know?
Too Fast.
Too Fast,
Too Fast,
240.
240.
Too Fast 240 starring Paul Rudd.
But I love this movie so much because of Paul Rudd. However, something that Gabriel said when they were talking about Guardians,
Mm-hmm.
he was talking about the freedom that Feige and Marvel gives to the directors.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I agree with you, they do give them freedom to do things, and like as you said earlier, for Age of Ultron, Joss Whedon kind of fights that freedom because he wants
Right.
to tell his own story, but
Mhm.
he can't because he's doing a culmination.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, because this movie was supposed to be directed by Edgar Wright,
Yeah.
and I love Edgar Wright, and I know that Edgar Wright had a vision for this, but it wasn't what Kevin Feige and Marvel wanted.
Well, I also remember that there was conflict backstage because around this time in Fight, we talked about a couple of films because The Dark World is here too, and there was creative differences there. So that's how many films are in Phase 2?
6.
6. We just talked about 3 movies that had creative.
But this one
Issues
must have
backstage.
been.
But I know that there was a battle between Ike Perlmutter, I believe is his name, who was in charge of Marvel TV, and Kevin Feige, because they were trying to make these two different studios work cohesively, and they had very different visions of what they wanted, and they both had a say in what happens in each other's division. And this turmoil, I mean, we're almost lucky that we survived through Phase 2, because then they start, because of these issues, they give the power over to Kevin Feige, and they just go, listen, you're Marvel Studios, and TV's something separate. And that's why we kind of see that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. backs off and it stops like connecting directly with the films. So this is, I think, the straw that broke the camel's back. Edgar Wright exits, and Joe Cornish, right?
Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish produce it.
Right.
They exit.
They were going to direct and write, but it has to go through a rewrite and a new director.
So yeah, you're right. They exit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that up until then, this is probably the biggest director that Marvel gets.
Right.
The most popular director.
Adam McKay?
No.
Oh, Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright. Adam McKay writes it.
Oh, Adam McKay writes it. Correct.
And
yeah,
even
actually,
then,
remember
and
that.
even then, Adam McKay is only doing Will Ferrell movies at the time.
Right. Well, because I remember that because Paul Rudd gets cast, so we're thinking it's going to be a comedy. It's Ant-Man. What a joke.
Ant-Man comedy, right? And it's
yeah.
One of the reasons one of the things I love about Guardians of the Galaxy, it's that it's a Marvel movie, right? But it's comedy, and there's some tension there, right? Because it doesn't feel it's more funnier than a Marvel movie, right? And so you have two styles. You have the Marvel style, right? And then you have Edgar Wright style.
Mm-hmm.
And I want that tension because I feel like that's what makes movie interesting.
Yeah,
that tension, right? But because Edgar Wright, like I said, he's the most popular director they pick up at that time. There's egos there.
Yeah,
there's his ego and his success.
Yeah,
versus the production.
Yeah,
and the obvious success that they have, right? And I would love to see what a Edgar Wright Ant-Man movie with Paul Rudd looks like, but we don't get it.
Is it safe to say that you would have liked to have seen this movie?
I would have loved to.
Yeah,
and that's what I want.
I disagree with you.
But then, because we'll talk about this later. Same thing with Solo.
Okay, yeah, and I think we may have touched upon this, but yeah, we disagree. You.
Yeah, I'm for like, all right, let the director who has success in this do his thing. Obviously, you have to guide him. Yeah, and I understand the other direction. The other token. Marvel they've been successful throughout this whole time. They know what they're doing.
There's rumors and hearsay about what Edgar Wright would have done with this film. I know that a big one that has been consistent, throughout the years, is that Hank Pym would have been the villain of this movie. Yeah, and I think that was a big, according to rumors again and speculation, that was a big dividing point between Marvel, and I don't think that would have worked.
Hank, how do you make Hank Pym I guess.
Well, because in the Ultimates comics, Hank Pym is like an abusive husband, and I mean he's basically a villain. I guess he's not a villain, although I think he would have been a villain in this movie, but he's just like, he's not worth being on the team, and he's a bad guy. And I think he was going to go with that, and Marvel Studios was not about that. They needed, especially because they get the actor Michael Douglas.
They got Michael Douglas, another big name.
Yeah, and I don't think they were going to
do that to Michael
Yeah,
Douglas.
I don't think they were gonna.
And we do get another movie with Michael Douglas. as
Yeah,
well.
and he gets to be Ant-Man basically.
Yeah,
You know. So this movie,
I would have loved it.
yeah, I'm glad we got the movie that we got. I think it fits more in, and that ends phase 2 for us. And that ends us kind of on a wonky note because we like phase 2, but it's riddled with just creative differences. There is a method in comic book writing known as the Marvel method, where the writer gives a basic outline to the artist in how to draw the comic. The outline guides what the story's going to be, but it's not written like script. Every single thing that they're going to say hasn't been written. The artist has freedom to paint the canvas and frame each panel the way that they want. Then the writer goes back and fills in the dialogue to follow the story that they had worked together to create, artist and writer. It has its pros and it has its cons, but it's worked for Marvel for decades. This was established with Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and the other collaborators
Kirby.
Jack Kirby, who worked with Lee. I think they find their footing here, where they realize we need to take control of this, but we need to give creative freedom for them to lay out the panels, so to speak, the way that the directors and the writers need to. So we get more leeway from this point on. So phase 2 is where we learn the lessons in what I like to call, or what we like to call, the Marvel movie method. There's a lot of growing pains in phase 1 and 2. Yeah.
I think they're working out the kinks.
Yeah, they're working out the kinks for sure. If it's budget, if it's casting, if it's writing and directing, they're working out the kinks.
And I think it definitely pays off for what comes next.
Right. So that's why we've entitled this 2-part series, The Marvel Movie Method. And next time, we're going to continue to explore these stories, these defining stories for a generation, over a decade now, who have shaped so many people around the world. And we're going to continue to explore, again, what we call the Marvel Movie Method. And we're going to search for how the stories that we told in phase 1 and 2, that we experienced, how they shaped the direction that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and maybe even our universe that we live in, takes for years to come. And until next time, keep on searching.